This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Thanks. Just when I went out.
We're on. I'd like to call our January 20 meeting to order. In accordance with state regulations, we are not opening it to the public. We are minimizing the number of people. We are keeping our social distance. Having said that, we do have a full agenda tonight besides our regular meeting. We have a presentation on the CAFR, and we have a workshop after that. So I ask members if they can move along as best as possible to get through at least the regular meeting. First item, minutes from our December 16th meeting, which I did not attend. Everyone's had a chance to look at it and review it. Any questions or comments?
I just have a quick comment. Down where it is referring to the discussion that we had about correspondence, and Mr. Donnie acknowledged receiving correspondence from Ms. Boehme. It says that Ms. Barrett suggested that the correspondence be read since we do not have public comment. I agree, that is true. But then it also says she recommended calling it a public correspondence. And I don't think that's entirely accurate. What I was saying was, I believe that we should still have some component of public commentary as part of our meeting. And if that involves actually reading some of the public comments that are submitted from our public, since we are a town meeting form of government, I think that in the spirit of our charter, that we should be reading them aloud. And if we don't, and the chairman simply just responds back to the individual, then that would be public correspondence. So I'm not advocating for public correspondence. I'm advocating for resuming some form of public commentary. So that's my only comment.
Well, we can change that to certainly to however you wish to phrase that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see which, on page
Oh,
2?
so yeah, it's about halfway down the page where it says Mr. Donnie,
Okay.
right there. Yep,
Yeah, however you want to turn it.
that's all.
And you want to change the word correspondence to?
Just again, I certainly never recommended calling it public correspondence. I was using that as a contrast to what it should be, which should be public commentary. And so if people take the time to do exactly what we tell them to do, which is submit their public comments in writing via email, I think we should certainly take the time to actually read them aloud and not just include them in our packets, but read them so that all the people listening and watching at home can also hear what the public have to say.
Well, in reality, Ms. Boehme's comments would have been ruled out of order, and they wouldn't even been passed to anyone. She made derogatory comments related to board members in her correspondence, from what I remember.
I read that and I don't remember reading
It will stay as correspondence. I mean, if you want to make a motion, we can take a vote on the motion. But it is correspondence. It is physically something that came in. And it wasn't publicly done.
But in the instructions at the very beginning, it says, if you would like to comment on this agenda, you can email your comments, not correspondence, to this email. Comments need to be received a week prior to the next Board of Finance meeting in order to be included in the
And
packet.
what is the reason for public comment, in your opinion?
The reasons for public comment are in our town meeting form of government.
In a board meeting, what is the reason for public comment, in your opinion?
The reason for public comment is, I think, threefold: for people to ask questions, offer suggestions, and also to make public comments and offer their opinions regarding things that are pertinent to this Board of Finance.
In order to influence or make the
In
board
order to
members
give a voice,
aware of what they.
in order to give a voice to our town meeting electorate.
And then that's exactly what is done by handing in the packet. You're making board members aware of what you're saying. It is public comment. It's not questions and answers. We have answered questions in the process. that's not truly what it is. It's not a question and answer session. If you want to amend, I'm still trying to say, you want to change the word correspondence to,
I did not advocate for calling it public correspondence, because I don't want
oh,
it
so
to be.
you just want to cross off where it says she recommends calling it public correspondence? Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
just, I would say strike
Does anyone have
that.
an objection to crossing that off?
No, I don't.
Can we, Ellen, amend it? I have a motion, I make a motion to approve
Right.
the minutes of the meeting with the exclusion of the phrase, she recommended calling it public comment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item. Update on our fiscal 21-22 budget. We do have a workshop right after this meeting. Ellen did hand out revised booklets. And that's about all we have related to old business.
Well, sir,
Sure.
on that agenda item there, of course, we did receive correspondence from the Board of Selectmen saying that they would support a total budget increase of 2%. The budget that we're working with from the department heads has an increase on the town side of the budget at the moment of 7.1% without capital and a 35% increase in capital. Or if you combine it all, it comes to a 7.6% increase. I know that the Board of Selectmen don't get into budget cutting, but should there be any focus to the cuts that would get it from 7.6% to 2%
From the Board of Selectmen?
from the Board of
No.
Selectmen?
No.
No,
It's not their purview. It's
No,
our-
I mean, the Board of Selectmen workshop session is a fundamental aspect of this government, where the Board of Selectmen sees the budget for the second and third selectmen see the budget for the first time. Ed and I deal with the budget and the projections every day. So the Board of Selectmen came up with a recommendation of 2%, and that's something the board does every year. It's this board's purview to go through the workshops and make recommendations to cut. Now, I'm gonna have some information, as I referenced at the last meeting, somewhere in this process to show you what we're gonna do, Ed and I, to get down and cut this budget. But it's your job to listen to these workshop sessions and to then determine what you think should be put in or should not. Now, Mike, before you walked in, I mentioned to the Board of Finance about this barrel here you see. This is something I asked Public Works to present tonight, because we get a lot of feedback from the residents, and I'm all over social media, I talk to residents about upgrading trash collection and recyclables with larger containers. That in the recycles is $1 million.
Right.
So this board's purview is to determine whether that is a reasonable request. So,
It's been talked about for years.
but, you know, that's kind of an overview as to why you saw the 2%. Sally recommended to Bill and I, let's put a letter in and let's say 2%. Originally it was gonna be 2.5%. We took Sally's recommendation, but in the end, it doesn't mean as much as what we're gonna go through from this process moving forward through the workshop, so.
Right.
I mean, the simple fact is what I've said year after year on this board. We don't start discussing the overall budget until the workshops are complete. This piece of correspondence from the Board of Selectmen suggesting that it be a 2% is part of that workshop that came to us.
It's aspirational.
But it should not be evaluated at all until every department's made their presentation to us.
Right.
And then we look at it in a whole.
Well, that's
So,
okay.
If I could just comment on that as well.
Anyone influenced by any one thing until you've heard everything.
There's a big gap between 7.
oh, we agree,
Five,
yeah.
right?
And we're gonna get it down, we'll get it, Nancy, you had a question?
No, I was just going to say that, again, I think that particular letter in the past has been jokingly referred to as not worth the paper that it's written on, but I think in this particular year, I think we should give it both the respect and the careful consideration that it deserves. Again, given the COVID circumstances that continue to dominate our town, our citizens are still struggling. And so much so that this particular administration saw fit to once again extend the grace period to pay the January taxes. And the vaccine, while it offers promise, I think is still, not attainable for everyone, not accessible for everyone. And so I think there are still quite a few citizens in our town that are struggling financially. So I think using this 2% as a guidepost, again, not something that we have to hit, but as a guidepost in this particular year, I think makes a lot of sense. And I think that it is something that I urge our fellow board members to consider, because again, I think the goal should be to keep our mill rate what it is.
Well, that is
Not
always a goal,
increase.
and I actually agree with that. You know, my goal is never to raise taxes. We reduced the mill rate 0.43 or 0.46 this past year.
Right.
But in the end, I want everyone to know one thing, and this is what I like about this job. It's gonna fall on my shoulders to deliver the revenue. So the pressure's gonna be
my
on
next
me,
point.
and I accept the responsibility. This board's got the purview to go through the finances of the workshop sessions, and then it's gonna come down to yours truly, with Ed as my internal sidekick here, to come up with some additional reductions, and then it's gonna fall on my shoulders to deliver the revenue. And that is what I accept as the responsibility.
Well, last year we certainly had the big boost from Amazon that we're not going to have this year. So all the more reason, if we don't have that kind of revenue as a cushion, then I think we have to be very careful on the expenditure side.
Well, don't forget, Amazon was on an abatement, and we pick up 20% a year, right?
Yeah, so, but everything you're saying is everything I already know. And this is what we talk about every day
No.
here. So,
I'm just encouraging my fellow Board of Finance members to take this 2% as a guidepost, which in previous years we kind of set aside. But in this particular year, we do not have the luxury that we did last year of a big influx of revenue. So I just think that that together with COVID and all of the other issues of individuals struggling, I think we have to make keeping the mill rate either exactly what it is or perhaps even lower, really the top priority.
Right, the only reason why I mentioned it was just simply because the public should know that we started from a position of 7.1.
Yes.
So the public's only gonna know how much work we all did.
Mhm.
Yeah, they wouldn't know that unless they know what the starting point was.
And that's all well and good.
So that's good.
And I'll take the same position we've taken every year. I don't wanna look at a 2% starting post. I wanna look at a zero tax increase and not give any more credit to any piece of document we get until we have all the documents digested.
Right, there may or may not be an increase in expenditures to commensurate with the increase in revenue.
So,
one final point, Mr. Chair, is that Ed and I specifically asked all the department heads to come in with their wish list. That's why there's a 7.1%.
Sure.
And Ed did a great job at working with the department heads, with me in the background with the department heads to do that. We wanted you to see what the requests were.
Yeah.
That should never imply to these fine citizens watching that it's gonna be a 7.
Yeah, and as for the 35% increase in capital, that capital amount is so small that it does not matter what those changes are. It's what we need in a given year and the overall budget, and not split up between capital and non-capital. All right, thank you.
Okay.
moving on to new business, expenditures. Any members have questions on expenditures?
I just have one question, and it's on page 9. Building supplies. Could somebody please explain to me what building supplies are under police?
Let's find that here. Wait a minute.
Do you keep the copy leases and stuff under that?
Do what?
The copy leases, anything like that?
No, that would be under office supplies somewhere. Building supplies. It might be where he puts his cleaning and a few other things in. And then if they run a detail to say exactly what he's putting in there. But I bet you a good part of it is the regular weekly cleaning. Maintenance, and it was
Because it's also
probably
under-
up.
it's
Because
also-
when we were trying to apply for FEMA money, we categorized it in one spot under central facilities. Then we said, forget it, because we didn't get that. We ended up getting some state money, but we told them to just reclassify it in their budget somewhere, and that's probably where all the extra cleaning is as well.
You know, Jim, that also includes disinfecting of police cars and the buildings, you know, with the increased level of antivirus and antibacterial solutions that are being done, so.
Okay, because it's also in the page 15 in the senior center building supplies.
I think every department is
Yeah,
gonna
every-
do
Yeah.
the same thing. It's just,
So it's, okay, well, I just didn't fully understand what it was.
Well, senior center ended up with a new either air conditioning unit or furnace or something that they had to have because the other one just was done.
Okay,
So that was a couple months ago.
anything else on expenditures?
Yes. On page 4, under building inspection, it appears as though the consultant line is already at 81.3%, which I don't entirely understand, particularly since the revenue brought in from building inspections is only at about 30%. Any insights on that?
Well, I don't think the two percentages are going to correspond because that's a much smaller number, but
Right, but we're halfway through the year.
Right.
And this is at 81%.
Yeah, so let me answer that, okay? So,
Okay.
you know, there's never going to be, particularly in a pandemic, a correlation between the expenses and the revenue. Because in this pandemic, as you've heard me say many times before, there was 37 projects that we lost that would have yielded a lot more permit fees if they came through. So a lot of the work that's being done are on smaller projects. They could be deck inspections, which yield much lower revenue than a lot of the big economic development projects that were on hold. So that is my answer as to why that is explained. In other words, if they're doing a deck permit versus an Amazon permit, they're still being paid the same amount, but the yield on the revenue is much less.
I see.
And that's what's happened here.
You know, that's a good analogy because we all know on the construction side, supplies have been diminished during COVID because homeowners
are doing
are
that.
eating up everything.
Yep.
They're eating up supplies because they had nothing else to do. They were home.
That's right.
Anything else on expenditures?
Yes, page 6, personnel policy. Again, I think I've asked about this before, but the unemployment compensation is at 285%. So I understand with COVID why this line is so high, but I was just wondering what departments specifically have been most affected by this? If you can
All the
disclose that.
part-timers.
Yeah, all the part-timers, probably library,
Library would be a big
recreation.
part of it.
But in government, we pay dollar for dollar, unlike in the private sector, where you pay a percentage in your first 15,000 of employee wages.
Right, I think that the library director said all the part-timers were
Yeah,
back.
they were, right, but prior to that, they weren't.
Right, but
You don't get it back.
I see. Okay,
Because nothing was charged this month.
because nothing was charged, I see, because it was 0 for this month, got it. Okay, and then page 7, central facilities. You know, the total at 92.8%, many lines well over, that amount, 421% for supplies that we've discussed before, but, I'm just wondering why we consistently have overspending on maintenance and repair for rental properties. I know Diane has asked this before as well, which is at 238%. Just the numbers for this particular category of central facilities are just a little bit alarming. 120, 420, 132, 238, all percentages.
Okay, well, on the maintenance of the rental properties, if you're a landlord, you have to fix everything that's wrong. And the building next door that we rent out, we're in the process of finishing up a roof because that was needed. The windows were needed to be replaced. And when they start leaking, you don't have much choice but either fix it or spend a lot of money repairing it. And I don't think that's always the best way to go. Sometimes it's better just get it done the right way and be done.
The line is awful low. I think at
Yeah.
one point, and I forget when this happened, but we got a list from Ed, you or Ellen, of all the rental buildings, right? We own like 6 buildings or something, right?
Yeah.
Correct, right.
So I mean, 12.5 for 6 buildings is peanuts.
No, it's nothing. I know. One building could eat that up.
Right, especially the roof.
Plus, they put it in-
So we under budgeted?
Right, because you never know. I mean, some
You don't
years
know.
I could have a lot of expenditures, otherwise I have none.
I see.
You know, it's
That's a
It's
plus.
hit or miss.
We didn't anticipate the roof having to be done next door, as an example, so that'll show up in the.
Right,
next
because that's
month.
over 20 years, 25 years old. Two roofs done. There you go.
And then on page 9, under, for the police department, this is a positive thing. I just like to say that I'm very impressed that the police is only at 47.6. So we're halfway through the fiscal year and they're under 50%, so that's great.
You know what, Nancy, excuse me for interrupting, but truthfully, my recollection is, and people like Mike, who's been on this board a long time, will tell you, the police department always hits their budget.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I just
They
think
always
that's
come
really
in-
impressive.
yeah.
Again, under such unusual circumstances,
Yeah,
I guess
sure.
is my point. Because I think for, many of our emergency responders, there's lots of curveballs that they have to deal with. And then page 11, under the fire department, again, first of all, I'd just like to say that I am completely in support of the proposed improvements to the volunteer firefighters' pension. And I guess we're coming up on a town meeting on the 25th to vote on that. But I just wanted to point out in terms of that is to retain our current volunteer firefighters. But in terms of recruitment, every month I look at this last line item of $10,000 and they still haven't spent any money. So I think that that's really important in terms of drumming up interest in our fire department, and the chief in his presentation on Saturday said that he only had 4 applications this year. So I just really would like to be able to see some more activity that we can quantify from a dollar standpoint in terms of recruitment. And then lastly, on page 13, streets and roads, the custodial contract of $7,500 budget, which is overspent up to, it's 468%. Do we have any idea what
Well,
happened?
right,
with that?
that's the special extra cleaning that's COVID related that they're going throughout the building. And I think they're also doing all their vehicles with that. And on the good side of it, Mike Maturo and Vet looked into a piece of equipment so that he could do it himself in-house with one of his guys. So-
And by buildings for streets and roads, they mean that tiny little building that's attached to the garage, correct? When you say
Oh.
that they're sanitizing a building, but
That whole garage. They
Oh,
work
it's
with
the
their people in
garage.
there, yeah.
I
There's
see.
office in there, there's a mechanics bay, there's everything in there.
okay, so
There's a
that
couple-
gets
two buildings there.
sanitized
Yeah,
as
the whole
well.
thing, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure, it was just the.
Because all the guys congregate there in the morning and at night
I see. So those are the only 2 buildings that you're talking about sanitizing?
for them, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they're just dealing with theirs, yes.
And trucks, and the trucks also.
The trucks themselves.
Sanitation guys are out picking up municipal waste, so
Yeah.
we're taking extra precautions to protect them.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Anybody
Anyone
else?
else in expenditures?
Well, I have one that didn't get asked.
Sure.
Page 10, the animal control, the building maintenance and repair. So where did we land with this? Because this was an issue in the past with the building for the animal shelter. So it's already over.
Mhm.
So Ed, do we know what's going on here?
Yeah, there was something just happened there,
There's a leaky roof.
yeah.
The building's is so antiquated. The animal control officers are asking me if it could be a future bonding package to build a new one.
Yeah, I thought we talked about, I know we talked about that in the past, but we keep spending all this money to repair it. It might be time to come up with a more permanent solution.
But you have to repair it in the interim.
Yeah, I know you do, but it just consistently in the
close.
past, we've seen this line item go up, and I know I've asked a lot on this line item, so, okay.
It's a good question and a difficult decision because, I'm torn on it. I'm a great animal lover. Our people do a great job down there. I've served for years as chairman of the state task force on the humane treatment of animals in municipal shelters, but it could be a $12 to $15 million project to bond for it. And I don't think
That much?
because there's so many new things that need to be put in, the air conditioning, the HVAC system. So it's an expensive project.
More
We're
than a
still in
police station?
joint,
More expensive than a police station?
Well, I'm giving you an estimate, $10 to $15 million, what we think it's going to cost. We haven't gone out to bid or anything, so
are we still working with Hamden? Oh, with
we're
the-
back with Hamden on a 1-year arrangement. We terminated the agreement And we're back with them under specific guidelines that the mayor worked out with myself and the police department's worked out. So it's a one-year contract, if you will.
And they're paying us.
Yeah.
Where does that money go?
It goes in the general fund, so.
Everything always clears through general
So I'm
fund.
just saying, why couldn't we use the money we receive from Hanson?
Yeah,
It's
that's
not,
it's not much.
it's not
Yeah,
much
you
at all.
can't.
You can't-
Right,
Yeah.
you can't, you couldn't do that anyway, but it's not much money.
Do we have a lot of animals in the,
Yeah, there's 14 kennels and, we were at 7 or 8 in terms of capacity with Hamden there now. Maybe we're at 12, so.
Maybe something to ask the police chief when he makes his presentation.
yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Gotta take
And
care of
Dan,
the
I think
animals.
In this case, there was also an underground leak in one of the pipes too we had to deal with. That was probably the latest expenditure.
It's just, okay,
Another one.
yep, okay, thank you.
We're good on expenditures.
Very good question, Doug. Very good.
Revenue?
Wait, no, one last thing on expenditures. It's a general question. Page 17, of course, is our medical insurance lines. And there's nothing out of order on it. I guess as an accounting way of handling it, we simply charge about 1/12 of what we believe the annual expense is for that line.
Exactly.
But
Because it goes
But
into
it-
the
but it-
self-insurance fund.
But in reality, we, being self-insured, we do have to cover whatever,
Well, the cost.
whatever liabilities there are. Yeah,
Minus
so,
reserves that are
right,
there.
so the question is, has COVID affected, created any concern in that, with our self-insured medical, policy in town?
I'd say for right now, what it's done is held up a lot of expenses because people were afraid to go in for elective surgery.
Exactly.
But once that settles, I figured there'd be a slew of new claims coming in as soon as things calm down. So it's just a matter of timing. They'll happen, just not right now.
Just as those home projects increased in frequency because people are home, people were staying away from medical on
Yeah.
elective, so
Yeah.
drop it down.
Okay, I asked that because we were worried that the reserves had been slightly underfunded, and we're going to build up the reserves a little bit over time, including some of the money that was left over from Board of Ed last year.
Yes, and they put that money in there.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you.
Good. Revenue? Special funds.
Wait, no, I have a question. on the
Very, very good question,
Oh,
Mike.
yes.
Very good question, Mike.
Just trying to
Revenue's in good shape.
Who knows? You wouldn't know the way you went so fast through it.
Did you read the report before you come?
I read the report, I could barely turn the
Yes.
page though.
Tim, did you have anything on revenue?
Mr. Swinkowski, the 250, that's miscellaneous and unbudgeted.
Thank you, I have the same question.
Not self-explanatory?
No, it is not.
We had some good news here. Edward, go ahead, share.
Right. We may not have gotten the FEMA money, but the state came through with the money from a COVID relief fund, and I think we got one check for 48 and the difference, and they both came in December, so that's why we ended up with the figure that you see right there.
Nice.
That was my question.
So $250,000?
Yeah, 248.
Wow.
We were,
Not gonna knock it.
we're very grateful, but still about 25,000 short of what we submitted, I think. But nonetheless, Ed and I were forecasting from $48,000 to $53,000, and then the rest of it came in, which was good. So,
And what does that cover in terms of expenses?
COVID-related expenses from this past year, whether pandemic-related expenses.
They're not specifically delineated, or they?
Well, we submitted a list of
Ah.
expenditures, and with a total dollar amount, they came back and they gave us the money that Ed's
Right.
talking about. So,
Okay.
Yeah, now I think there's 2 stages to that state reimbursement, right? Of what happened prior to June 30th and what happened since?
Right, that's what, we got 2 checks.
Okay, so those 2 checks added up to that amount? Or
I don't know
we
if it
haven't
came
got
out
the second-
exactly,
Did we get
but
the second check in, or was that just?
they both came in December.
So Mike, to answer your question, this what I referred to a few moments ago, it's slightly short of what we submitted for pandemic expenses, but a lot more than we had
Right,
anticipated.
and again, it was split into 2 parts of the year, just what, I wasn't certain if the second checks got mailed yet.
It was before first one was for before June 30th, and the second was for after.
Okay, that's the total. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, very good, very nice.
Anyone else on
Good
revenue?
job on that.
Special funds.
Thank you for putting all these figures together, Ed. Very nice.
You're welcome.
If you weren't in the office, thank you to whoever did it.
I was in the office to
Do
do
we
it.
have anything on special funds, Michael? Hearing none, Board of Ed.
Yeah, Board of Ed, substitutes certified, they made an adjustment. They took $265,000 out of that $535,000 line. Is that because of virtual classrooms, or is that because of COVID? Is that a benefit to them?
What are you looking, Mike? Cause
Well, that 113A on the Munis reported.
I noticed they did away with substitute non-certified.
Well, yeah, actually, I'm sorry, 330F, it looks like it's an
It's
offset.
a reclass down to the bottom. There, Mike.
330.
Right.
Certified professional
Tech.
tech. Okay.
They reclassed the 70,000 right below it.
Well, the Board of Ed's coming before us in a month, so we'll just ask them about it.
save your questions.
Well, look, Mike, let me tell you what I think it is. Okay, we can certainly ask the Board of Ed, but I talk to Patrick all the time. And during this COVID, when there are quarantines and teachers get quarantined when they're in, they go to a substitute format and they have to bring in substitutes. Originally, we were working with Quinnipiac University, but when they were quarantined because of situations there, Patrick has gone in the Board of Ed to Kelly Services. So they're trying to, when people are quarantined due to COVID cases, trying to bring more substitutes
Oh,
in.
okay, so that wasn't a reduction in substitutes, that's sort of a reclassification of what line the substitutes
That's my assessment of that line item.
are being billed on.
That's my
Or
assessment. I could
different
be wrong,
type of substitutes coming, okay,
but they'll clarify when they're here, okay?
yes, thank you.
Anything else on the Board of Ed?
Yeah, why, heat and gas, that's we're at 88%. I guess I'm kind of shocked at that. Is there a problem in one of the schools, or I just think that's high.
Well, it's a huge
88%.
encumbrance. It's a $220,000 encumbrance.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking why is it so high?
Because that probably covers several months going forward. He tends to book the encumbrances ahead.
Yeah, but in the beginning, there was a lot of remote. They were remote for quite some time. I guess, I don't know. Can you check on that?
Yeah.
Just curious, because they were remote. Almost everyone was remote at one point. I know there's people in the building, but I guess I'm just, kind of stands out.
Anything else on the Board of Ed? Have a motion to accept the report as presented.
Make a motion.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Review of the CAFR. Joe, are you with us? Alex?
Yeah, I can see him, he's unmuted. He's unmuted, I think.
Joe? Still on mute?
There he goes.
Good evening, Joe. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
A new approach to this, don't you think?
Can you say that again?
A new approach to the CAFR report.
Okay. Yep, so I'll walk through some highlights and then you can ask whatever questions. So there should be, two reports, the CAFR report, which is the larger one, and then the federal and the state water reports. So starting with the CAFR, the opinion on the financial statements is on page 19 and 20. It's a modified clean opinion, so that's the kind of opinion you're looking for. We have no problems or issues or scope limitations. The MD&A starts on page 21. As I said, in past years, I think it's a good executive summary of the financial operations of the town and some of the changes as compared to prior years. So it's a good high-level view of what happened. So looking at some of the sections, general fund, your undesignated fund balance at the end of the year was Page 27 is 8.07% of the general fund budgetary expenditure which transfers out. We also talk about some of the other major funds, so the bonded project funds, capital non-recurring, kind of what the activity was in those funds. On page 29, talk about major capital asset activities. These are significant additions that you had during the year, such as construction progress, schools, those type of things. And on page 30, you know, the net impact of what your debt was compared to the prior years. Your debt was down about 1.8 million. Your debt is compared to the prior year. From a general fund perspective, the details of gap basis on exhibits C and D, which is page 34 and 36. Your assigned fund balance ended about $8.2 million. This year, the net change in fund balance was a decrease of about $521,000.
Joe, what page is that? What page is that, please, Joe?
That's page 36. First column, third line from the bottom.
I see it. Thank you.
So looking at your budgetary statement, there's RSI 1 and 2, which is on page 98 through 100. So it shows your revenue budget look like, where your expenditures, where your budget actual and where you ended. So revenues were under budget, including the appropriation of fund balance of about 3.2 million, but then expenditures were under budget also. So you get planned use of fund balance, and you need to use that because of both the revenue being higher than considering that piece than the budget and then expenditures coming in lower. For WPCA, it's a decrease in that position of about 20,000, so basically a break-even year there. I think there was as compared to prior year, there was some repairs and maintenance, about 23,000 that was different. It was higher than last year.
Joe, could you reference what page you're on, please, on the WPCA?
He can't hear you.
Could you reference what page you're on, please, Joe, for the WPCA?
WPCA is page 39 to 41. So it should be exhibit F and exhibit G.
Okay. Yep, I see it. Thank you.
Internal service funds, which are on the same pages, you had an increase of change in that position of about the 904,000. As I heard Ed talking earlier about most clients, because of COVID, were down because the doctor's office were closed and elective procedures were down. So most of my clients had definitely favorable operations, but and I'm not sure what actually happened, but the expectation would be that if those procedures that were postponed, at least some of them would have happened over the summer, and so a lot of that would probably be given back as people went back to the doctor. Starting on page 44 through 96 are footnotes. Pretty much the same as prior year. The only footnote I will point out that is different on page 69 and 70, you do have a coronavirus contingency note, just saying we don't know what's going to happen going in the future after June 30. So that was a pretty standard note, which was recommended by the NSCPA in all audits, whether government or the private sector. So starting on page 102 in the RSI, there's required supplementary information. Your pension plans, your employee plan, about 81% funded. So police plan, about 72%, fire is about 80%, and volunteer fire is 89%. So somewhere in the 80s is kind of where you want to be. Police is a little bit low, while the other ones are the kind of rates right where you want to be, and as long as you continue to fund the director recommends, you're in good shape from a pension standpoint. OPEB, you just recently started funding, so that's something that you'll have to continue to look at in the future. The other report is the federal and state single audit reports. For federal single audit, we tested one program. We had no findings or question costs. And that's on page, put together in a smaller document. The state single audit, in the same document, we tested 3 programs. And we had no findings or question costs related to any of that testing. As far as what's coming up, it's the same couple items that have been on the rise in the last couple of years. The big one is the lease standard. With the pandemic, that got postponed. It was supposed to be effective in 21, it's effective in 22. And GASB 84, which relates to fiduciary funds and that reporting and starts looking at deferred comp plans and those type of things. That's effective next year, so there may be some additional disclosure, additional financial statements in next year's report with some deferred comp plans or if they meet the criteria that were excluded 20 years ago and now GASB wants to bring it back through the reporting process. And in 87, fee leases, that's a little bit more of a project to do that lease accounting, which is effectively capital lease accounting, recording an asset and liability for all leases as right to use and whatever the present value is that you have to pay for that right to use. So now it's going to add some more complexity to the top financials, rule-based financial statements, but not necessarily the general fund and the fund financials will look the same. GASB is looking at changing some of that reporting, but right now they're just still looking at that. So that's probably about 5 years out before it goes through the process and becomes effective. So those are the highlights. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Page 115,
115.
Connecticut State Teachers Retirement System. I don't remember.
We're not liable for this, Rich.
We're not liable for
No.
it, but I don't remember the other reports. They're just-
It may not be, but it doesn't matter. It's not our
Well, the
short.
state is still,
I mean, it's important if you're a teacher like my wife, by the way. But this 52, you're talking about the 52% funding?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the state's liability, right, Joe?
It's based on information provided by them to us.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
information from them.
yeah, the state,
And
yeah.
we don't have a proportionate share of it either, I believe.
Well, they tried running some of it downhill a few budgets back.
They tried to have us pay for a share of the annual required contribution.
Right.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
wasn't
that-
successful, but.
And that will not be part of this upcoming legislation either.
Anyone have any questions of the CAFR?
Do we need a motion? Maybe.
I don't see a motion, no motion. If no questions, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
See you. All right, bye.
And that actually finishes our agenda. And we do have a workshop we're gonna be moving into, so I make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Yes. Oh.
Accommodating us on Zoom. Before I start, I do want to say thank you to all of you. I have a special thanks for Mike and Ed. I think I'm speaking on behalf of all my staff in our offices. We feel very fortunate to be employed to continue to serve our residents of North Haven. But we also are very thankful for the PPE that has been supplied to us, the plexiglass, the weekly cleanings, special cleanings of our offices, the masks, the gloves. You know, I listened to a lot of what you were talking about in budget earlier, and you know, I just want to say thank you on behalf of my staff, because with all these things, you allow us to serve the public. At this time, we are taking, you know, public by appointment only, but we continue to work and, you know, serve the folks and the contractors in the town of North Haven. And it's because of what Mike and Ed have done for us, and certainly the funding that has come from the board as approved and the residents of the town of North Haven. So I simply wanted to start with that.
Which item would you like to address first in your budget?
And as far as our budget goes, I'd like to start on page 29 for us. And we start on land use administration. And essentially, we have kept our commission secretary boards, overtime, car allowance, office supplies, and fees and expenses the same. We're not proposing any change in the next fiscal year. With regard to planning and zoning, you know, and assuming after July things, we'll say, get back to normal. You know, we assume that our printing, our legal advertisements, our zoning regs, public stenographer, and consultants will kind of get back into the norm. I will say that planning and zoning has seen a big jump in meetings. In February, I think we have 10 items on the agenda. Last month, I think we had 12 or 14. We are moving along very quickly now. You could tell that there's a lot of development picking up. And to go back to some of the comments in like building and land use, because we're all intertwined together, we are doing, most of the summer was spent permitting folks who were home, doing home projects, going to Home Depot, going to Lowe's, going to building supply houses, and doing all types of smaller projects. So there's been a slew of those projects. There's now the things are starting to change to subdivisions and you know, we'll say larger residential developments, and we're starting to see those things in land use. So we do expect in the next year for our budget to remain the same. Same thing with the Inland Wetlands Commission. We're also seeing a lot of applications come in for inland wetlands, although last month was canceled, but that was kind of an oddity. We have been pretty busy in the Inland Wetlands Commission and expect going forward into the next fiscal year our budget numbers to be the same. And of course, Zoning Board of Appeals, we have not proposed any changes to that budget either, because we do feel a lot of folks are also asking for variances, and there's a pretty hefty agenda for the last several months, probably the last 4 or 5 months on the ZBA. Before I go to page 30, does anybody have any questions for me?
No, we'll ask at the end, thank you.
Okay. On page 30, you know, we start to get into our building department. We are, you know, pretty much very similar. We have proposed some increases in our line for office supplies and equipment. We've also proposed an increase in our line for you know, dues and expenses. A question was asked during the regular meeting about the consultant line and the number of inspections, and Mike Frieda hit it right on the head. We are conducting unbelievable amounts of inspections for a lot of really small jobs at this time. We expect a lot of that to continue, but we also expect some of the other jobs to kind of get back up and running, whether it's hotels or you know, the proposal for Fantasia, or some changes that we're seeing on Upper Washington Avenue, where the developers are waiting for changes in COVID, changes in the university, and folks going back to school at QU. So I think we're going to see a lot of increase in movement and projects as a result of that. So we do have a couple changes in building proposed. We're also looking at a different permitting software, which may initially cost us a little more to get into it, but down the road, the annual fees will be far less than what we're dealing with right now. And Ed and I are working with the town attorney on that. In engineering, we proposed an increase in our office supplies line and equipment. And I want to thank you folks for approving of our new laser copier, which has been fantastic. It does a lot of PDF scanning for us, and Andy Bevilacqua, who's on this call, can attest to the value of this unit. It's just been excellent. We also proposed a decrease from $15,000 to $10,000 in our field equipment. And one of the things that we did ask, and I do see that Andy is on the call, and Alex, maybe you can unmute him. We did ask for an assistant full-time engineer, and we had requested this last year, and I just thought we would just go over it briefly one more time with you. Board. Andy?
Yeah, Lynn, I'm here. Let me go to, okay. Yeah, so, last year we had requested a assistant town engineer. It's a position that has existed with the town for many years in the past. The way I kind of look at it is I can certainly do the job without the assistant town engineer, but by having the assistant town engineer, what it does is it allows me to spend more time with our construction projects. I'm very limited in the time that I can spend on those jobs. We do have consultants that are assisting us on that, but our own personal time out there becomes limited. And there's a lot of things I'd like to do in terms of modernization in the department that would be made a lot easier with that position being reinstated. I understand that budgets are tough now and money's tight. We don't know what the state's going to be doing coming up. I understand if the board decides that they don't want to fund the position this year. But I thought in the best interest of the department, I just think it would be a great addition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Also on page 30, the public works section, there's no changes in personnel or overtime. We're not proposing any changes in office supplies, vehicle operation and maintenance, or dues and expenses. Under the consultant fees, we are still moving along with the MS4 program, the separate stormwater sewer systems. We have been preparing a lot of our own annual reports, but the consultants have been doing sampling for us that's required by Connecticut DEP, whether it's sampling of our landfills, sampling at our recycling center and at our transfer station, or it is sampling the 6 sites where we have picked up, we'll say, the worst level of pollutants in town. And so we're starting to go in different directions. The consultant, Anchor Engineering, has been helping us identify a lot of issues where we need to maintain compliance with under the MS4 permit. And we've gotten a lot of kudos from the Connecticut DEP, which is, it's a nice thing. You don't get a lot of compliments from regulatory agencies, but we seem to be out in the forefront, which is really, really good for us. We're not changing any proposals for permit or application fees, and that is on page 30. And before I switch to page 38, does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Yeah, bring us capital.
Okay, so on 38 for us in capital, we only proposed the replacement of my vehicle, which is for $30,000. It's a 2003 Jeep Liberty. It has about 170,000 miles on it. And the building department vehicle, I think that's also up over 100,000. It's both vehicles are shared with land use, building, engineering, and myself.
So you're just breaking them in?
Pardon?
130,000, 170,000, you're just break them in?
Yeah, get that up to
Yeah.
200. We don't.
I just know we hit 300.
Yeah.
Okay, so that essentially concludes our projects. And I don't know if you have any other questions of us. If not, I can hand it off to Michael Maturo.
Oh, hang on one second. Mike, do you have anything?
No, that new engineering position, is that listed in our current budget?
I don't see it.
No.
It's not there.
Nope.
Lynn, you do know how it works. We only cut things that are in the budget, we rarely add anything that's not in the budget.
No,
So-
we've added things in the past.
So by all means, please,
Pat Brown asked us to add
use your
something.
pen, use some whiteout, and put in the number you wish for in the beginning. Because Mr. Frieda, who's a big development guy, might see this assistant engineer as something the town needs.
Did you have any questions related to her budget?
Yeah, I like her budget. There's a lot of zero
Mr.
increases.
Donahue, anything? Diane? Jim?
Yeah.
Anything?
Who's handling the Vanacore track?
It's
Oh,
under the
that's
school,
the-
isn't it?
That's us, the track complex or the concession, Jim?
The complex,
The maintenance?
So,
the maintenance on it, yes.
yeah, the complex is co-managed by myself and Phil Diana of the Board of Ed. It's one of the maybe only hybrid co-management things that we're doing in town. It is on the budget. It is contracted out. It is being managed by CreateScapes, which used to be Blue Hills Landscaping, just a name change. And I believe next year we put it back out for bid. So this is their last year. And it's the maintenance of the track, the lighting, the the bleachers, ADA compliant bleachers, the football field, the lining, et cetera, things like that.
So Lynn, I have a quick question for you regarding, this is Nancy Barrett. Is the current $67,000 price being paid in full, even though we didn't have any home football games this last year? Because of course those games are a big part of the yearly responsibility for field prep and cleanup. So I'm just wondering if we pay them to do nothing.
No, they did a lot actually, Nancy, because
Okay.
you can't just you can't let the grass grow. You have to fertilize it. You have to cut it. Where we saved money on was like the lining of the fields.
Right.
Because we have to line them if you had games. And there's money savings there. We lit the track, so folks who wanted to stay out late and walk were able to walk. Cleaned up trash because we had a lot more walkers and a lot more people using the complex. Actually, people asked us to keep it open even till now, but because of that new concession stand, I had to tie the electric in under the project. And the folks from the electrical union who were doing free, no-cost work at the concession were only available, I think, like middle of November, so we started to move the electric over. So we actually got a lot more use of the complex, but not necessarily by the Board of Ed or youth football. So we did a lot of maintenance. We were constantly mowing the lawn. I know we demolished a building that was there for a long, long time, but Primary Landscape, AKA CreateScapes, pretty much did everything in their contract except for the lining, the actual field lining. But, they maintain the sprinkler system. They fixed the sprinkler heads. When the lights burned out, they had to put light bulbs in and rent a lowboy to, get them up into the lighting system. So a lot of what was there was still, a lot of what's in the contract still occurred just because of the constant use of the system itself, the park. Everybody loved it.
I see.
Anything else, Nancy?
That's it.
Thank you, Lynn. You said
Okay.
Michael's available? Michael's with you, or?
No, he's.
Michael's on. I'm going to mute myself.
All right, thank you.
One comment that I'd just like to make before we transition here is, again, just in terms of the Public Works capital, I think one way that we might be able to get that total figure down, the 1.3 million, is to really consider some of the Public Works line items to apply for the waivers.
We're already doing that, yes.
So,
Yes, we're already.
so that's terrific. Great. Because that money is all trapped. We can't use it.
Alex, can we get Michael?
He should be unmuted.
He's on.
Michael, are you with us?
Do you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I just want to say good evening and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
And I'd like to also say
thank you to Mike and Ed, and of course the board. And I'd also like to say thank you to the men and women of the Department of Public Works Field Operations team. Our field operations employees work hard every day, providing many of our town's service, from sanitation, recycling, road maintenance, and construction, storm management, and maintenance of our parks and public areas. Our experienced maintenance division ensures a safe day-to-day operation fleet-wide. Their hard work and dedication enables us to keep our 24/7 emergency operation running smoothly. Our team's hard work and commitment to this town makes North Haven such a wonderful place to live. And I'd like to thank all of them for their hard work and dedication.
Thanks, Mike. If you could take us through your budget?
Yes, I'd like to do a nice, quick 2020-21 year-end review, if that's okay with all of you. I believe I put together,
We have it.
do you have that on there?
Okay, not on the screen, Ellen gave us.
Oh, you have it in front of you? Okay. The Public Works Field Operations tackled multiple challenges, unlike we have seen in years past, including 2 weather events within months' time. We successfully were able to complete the following: bulk pickup in June and September, 175 stormwater basin replace and repair. The August 4th tropical storm, we did a townwide bulk brush pickup program, as well as the August 27th tornado. We also did the townwide brush pickup program. Our leaf pickup program, which ran from November 2nd to December 11, 2020, is completed. Our 2020 bulk pickup. This year, the sanitation department faced challenges unlike other years in the past. COVID-19 put a strain on the crews. However, the crews completed a heavy year of bulk pickup and a day-to-day operation of sanitary waste. The service our residents receive is unmatched to other towns. Paving of 2020 unfortunately was delayed. The crews conducted preventive maintenance for the 2020 paving schedule. Due to the tropical storm and the tornado, the paving was delayed till 2020. The crews were able to repair and replace approximately 175 catch basin structures throughout the town. Tropical storm passed through North Haven on Tuesday, August 4th, with damaging winds up to 70 miles an hour. Wind spread tree damage occurred. Approximately 57,667 cubic yards of tree debris was collected from that storm at our temporary storm drop-off site. On August 27, the tornado, National Weather Service damage survey, they estimated the time that it came in was 3:53 to approximately 4:03. Maximum EF scale rating of EF1. The maximum wind was 110 miles an hour. Maximum path width was 500 yards, and the path length was 11.1 miles. On this day, the town of North Haven was faced with a significant tornado. A large portion of the town was in the tornado's path. There was widespread significant tree damage. A total of approximately 71,474 cubic yards were collected in those areas affected. In top that off. The grinding of the materials that were collected was completed on January 19, and it is still being transported out of our temporary site. Our 2020 leaf collection program, as I said, it started November 2nd and finished on Friday, December 11th. The 6-week program netted a total of approximately 15,763 cubic yards of leaves. And now we get into
Hey,
our
Mike.
budget.
Hey, Mike, it's Tim Donahue. Do we still auction off the compost?
Yes, we do that in September.
Yeah.
We turn them, they decompose, and it comes to a material that we put up to auction in September of each year.
Okay.
And we're able to actually auction off each pile each year, so we have an open space for the following leaf program,
Thank you.
which actually helps. I'm gonna start with budget requests, if that's okay. We're requesting to add 1 full-time office secretary. This position would assist with customer service, telephone answering, typing, word processing, data entry, recording, record keeping, filing, prepare reports, purchase orders, and performs related duties. The other request, we'd like to request 1 additional full-time sanitation collector. This full-time position would ensure all sanitation and recycling trucks are fully staffed. Currently, 1 recycling truck is short a collector, but that would actually help. In streets and roads, we're requesting 1 laborer. This position would assist in everyday tasks for road maintenance, maintaining town parks, town grounds, mowing, painting of fields, prepping of baseball fields, roadside litter removal, potholes, and snow removal. Okay, now I'm going to capital request for equipment replacement. For streets and roads, we're asking to have a 1978 John Deere 550 dozer replaced with a mini excavator with a trailer, which that combination would cost $82,000 to replace. And I also supplied you with some pictures for the equipment that we're looking to replace. In the Parks Department, we're looking to replace a 1994 Chevy 3500 dump truck, which is currently out of service, with a Isuzu NQR-NR3 150 with an open landscape body, which is estimating $61,000. With this piece of equipment or truck, it would be utilized in multiple ways. Winter months, summer months, whichever season it could be used, it'll be on the road. And I believe this is the last one this would be streets and roads as well. This is replacing a 1989 John Deere 510 backhoe, which is currently out of service as well, with a John Deere 624L four-wheel drive loader, which is estimated at $193,000.
Why is the backhoe out of service?
We currently were using it for our storm debris pickup, and we had some problem with the rear end of it, the rear axle.
Your power takeoff or the drive itself? I'm sorry.
What was that again?
The power takeoff or the drive? Because, I mean, if you're gonna replace a backhoe.
Drive axle. The dry back,
Okay.
the rear dry axle.
You want to replace a backhoe with a loader. That would be a problem if you don't get the mini excavator then, right?
We have additional, we have a 410 and a 710 backhoe, as well as the 120 excavator.
Okay,
The mini excavator, I mean, it would be used for all the basic
Catch
repairs
basins.
on the road base. I get cut off.
no, we got you.
So it would benefit in all around projects around town. Last one would be a replacement for the 94 Chevy 3500 service utility truck. This will be replaced with a F550 with a similar service utility body, estimated from $62,000. And that would be the last of the replacement. We're asking for the town's support in possible purchase of sanitation and recycling totes. These are 96 gallon. We're asking to purchase 20,000 of them. 10,000 in sanitation MSW and 20,000 in recycling, which are estimated 1,450,000. With this, each household would be supplied a 96 gallon tool for MSW and recycling. The built-in lift bar for the built-in lifting bar for tipping would eliminate lifting and decrease injuries for our personnel. Currently, our trucks are equipped with tippers, so no matter if it's the trash or the recycling, our trucks are equipped with the tippers. Currently equipped with them, so if we do purchase them, we can utilize them right away.
Mike, a quick question about these totes and the tippers. If we go in that direction, does that mean that we need a smaller staff?
Currently, with the trucks that we have, it'll be the same amount of personnel. You still have to have the 2 collectors in the back and a driver.
So what will the 2 collectors be doing if the tipper is in operation?
The tippers are in operation. They currently use them. Some of the residents in North Haven have purchased totes that are equipped with that lifting bar, so they are able to use them currently.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking if we go to 100% and we spend the $4 million, $1.4 million to purchase these 20,000 totes, and we go forward with this, why would we need 2 employees on the truck? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, you need a minimum of 2 employees. That's why I'm trying to figure out why we would need 3.
Oh, we need 3, sorry.
It's not an automatic arm that comes out for these. These
No,
are
it's
actually
not
be moved to the back of the truck, hooked up there, and then dumped.
I see, because
We
I
can advance in time to
so.
an automatic arm, but that's not what the town has for vehicles.
got it.
But I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't just have 1 person on the back if we went with that. You're just
That's my
wheeling 1
question.
pail per resident.
And then a separate sweep for recycling. Yep.
It's a separate vehicle, separate road.
Not to complicate things, but there's a request here for another body on the collector truck.
Yeah. I mean,
Where's the benefit?
obviously, these totes aren't, I doubt if they're gonna be purchasing this, they're not gonna be pushing this budget. That would end up being a town meeting maybe to appropriate the fund under a capital request.
Where would be the benefit to the town by spending 1.4 million and maintaining the same work staff? I don't see where.
Yeah, I don't see how you would maintain the same staff. I think you would reduce a person on a truck. One
Well,
person.
we gotta keep in mind, one house may have additional, trash.
More than one of those bins?
Yeah. Oh,
All right, there's something we can talk about.
Something to think about.
But no, I think what he's saying is they would have one bin plus a traditional can, or
Yeah.
that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I see, so
Right.
not something that.
Yeah,
Um,
one might not work.
I mean, we can, again, that's something to talk more at a town meeting too as well, I would think.
Yeah, I think as I said earlier, that this initiative, if it goes through, would not be a budgeted item of $1 million or $1.4 million. Mike's talking 20,000 cans.
Yeah.
It would have to be part of a bonding package in order for us to do this, so.
I mean, I like the idea, I really like the idea when we were being paid for recycle. Especially someone like Mr. Piper who recycles everything. He didn't even need a trash pail. I mean, the guy recycles everything. But something for us to think about, I guess.
I guess just one more thing. I didn't realize when we talked about it earlier, these were not automated arms. So someone has to manually put the arm in position? Is that
Yes,
what we're
but
talking
not
about?
put the arm in position. We have hooks in the back of the packers. You would reel that pail to the back of it and hook it up, and then it would dump it automatically.
So they have to move it from the curb to
Yes.
put it in position behind the truck, then it lifts it into the rear of the
That's
back.
what the town has right now.
I see. I was thinking of the side ones you see.
There are the side ones,
Yeah.
and there's kind of two problems with the side ones, per se. I would assume if the town moved in this direction, it would probably use both. One problem with the side one is a number of our streets, especially in the Ridge Road area, the overhang for trees are so much lower that they can't use that sidearm to tip. The other thing is those sidearms, a lot more maintenance. You know, we may drop a person off a truck picking up a can, but you're gonna add somebody in maintenance.
So if I can make,
Servicing it.
if I can make a final point, as I started to say earlier, I'm in contact with many, many residents throughout the course of a week, a month, and a year. And the reason I asked Mike, and Ed and I asked him to put this in, many residents will often say, Mr. Frieda, you know, on the smaller bins, the plastic blows in the windstorms, and, you know, they look at it, the residents do, as this to be a much more efficient method of pickup. Now, what are the benefits? Coming back to Jim's question, Mike would be the first to tell you, he alluded to it here earlier, that it reduces injuries and it reduces workman's comp. And we're self-insured on workman's comp.
Yes.
So Mike is projecting that the injuries due to the current way we do it would be reduced over the course of time. So benefits, more moving forward. Again, workman's comp diminished and residents having a much more efficient way. A lot of people, like Rich is talking about, like Bill Piper's a good example, they love recycling. And they many times will ask us for additional bins, but because they're smaller bins and they load it up, the plastic tends to blow away at night sometimes. That's the feedback I get from residents.
That's what happens on Night Lane.
You see that on Night Lane?
Here, right on my driveway.
Okay.
I mean, you look at Wallingford and Northford towns that actually residents that pay for services to pick up their trash. They all have two bins, one for recycle and one for, I've never seen more than one in a residence, and that seems to fulfill their needs when it's that size. So, yeah, it's definitely something to explore. Anyone, Tim, do you have any questions for Mike?
Well, he's gonna go over his increases in the dollars,
Oh.
right? You're gonna go over the last page, right, Mike?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Then
And
continue.
actually, supply, bin upstairs at, meeting room.
Yeah, we're looking at it.
You guys could, view. All right, the budget lines, we're looking at, increase, sanitation, budget line from 25,000 to 28,000, which is an increase of $3,000. Sanitation, division as well, the condo trash pickup reimbursement, we're looking to increase it to 90,000 from our current 65,000.
Mike, are there more condos in town, or is there some sort of formula we used, and that's what's driving this increase?
Mike, I could take that one for you. What's happening is the town every year does the calculation, and we pay the condos the lesser of what it would cost us versus what they're paying their trash haulers.
Right.
In this instance, in the past, since 2 years ago we were getting money for recyclables, we never paid them for recyclables in the last couple of years.
Oh, I see.
Now we got to start going back and paying for the recyclables because we're paying for it.
Right.
So that's why we had one condo, I think, this year, but additionally, we've got to pay for the recycling and the trash.
But this has
Pick up.
never been the full cost, right? It's only a portion of the cost, right?
Well, we take the lesser of the two. Go ahead, Ed, explain
Right,
that.
we take the lesser of the two. What it would cost their trash guys to pick it up, they give us the paperwork, we figure it out, versus what it costs us. And we reimburse them the lesser of the two.
And Tim, the other part of the formula is if the occupancy rate increases or decreases, Ed makes the adjustment.
Right.
So,
Only owner occupied units.
yes.
Oh, good.
Michael, you want to explain your tipping fee too? Or
This is also for the sanitation division, the tipping fees. We're going to have to increase that to $1,325,000 from our current budget line of $675,000.
Yeah, so,
Increase of $650,000.
and Mike, I can talk to this because I'm heavily involved with this, not only at a local level, but at a regional level and a state level. This is largely reflective of the fact that our tipping fees all over the state, all the municipalities, have risen dramatically. And if we looked at our tipping fee, let's say it's roughly $68 to $70 a ton, it has now gone to about $92 to $93 a ton. And it's the same thing all over the state. This issue is going to get even more complicated because Mira in Hartford will close, which will reduce the number of repositories for trash. I'm actually working with the Commissioner of DEEP, Katie Dykes, to try to come up with some sort of regional solution. But in the meantime, this is what the projection is based on the current tipping fee of approximately $92 a ton. So you can see it's virtually doubled. Now, some of that is also an increase. During the pandemic, we see more people putting more trash out, more recycling because they're staying home more. They may be taking out from restaurants and they may be bringing that and putting that into municipal waste. So do I see some give here on the $1,325,000? I'll have a better idea of that as this budget process moves forward. I'm hoping that we can bring that down another $100,000.
nobody wants trash anymore.
I have a quick question, Mike, regarding the sanitation. Again, and this pertains to the very first line item, which is the full-time personnel. I'm just wondering why the full-time personnel is going up 12% if the contractual increases are 2.5%.
Ed can answer that more. I assume it's the same reason.
Yeah, their contract
Negotiated
is settled
contract.
as well,
Contract
so
settled, so it's all the back dollars.
Several 2 years of contract increases in there. 2.5 plus 5, 7.5.
So,
Their contract was just settled in this past year.
right, so it's a 3-year contract at 2.5%. So any retroactive pay comes from a different line item,
Yes.
right? Contractual obligations. And 2.5% over 3 years gets you to 7%.
2.5 the first year, 5 the second, 7.5 for the 2 years.
Oh, I thought it was 2.5, 2.5, 2.5.
No.
They got
Well,
compound.
2.5, then 2.5 on top of 2.5.
It compounds.
Yeah, I understand.
Same thing that we talked in the other workshop.
Yeah.
The number that's carried there is the original number before contracts changed. He doesn't increase it any percentage any year. So when the contract gets settled, the first year had an increase of 2.5%.
Yep.
The next year has that 2.5 plus another 2.5, so it's 5.
Yep.
And then the third is 2.5, 2.5, 2.5,
2.5.
6, 7.5.
Right.
So you got 7.5.
15%.
You got the
No.
five.
It's
compounding is about-
7%. Compounding,
Compound
it's
is
7%.
a little bit less than 8%.
Right.
Right, so
Yeah.
there's
Yes.
4% something else in here, maybe
Right,
that's
so
step
that's the
increase.
question.
In the step that he did.
Right.
It's
Same thing like
7%. It's not 12. So that's my question. Why is it 12%?
Because
If the contract
The step
dictates.
as well.
There's steps in there also.
The step in there as
increases
well.
by contract. Michael asked this question Saturday.
I did not get the step answer though. I
No,
didn't
somebody
know,
said-
I didn't know that everyone was a teacher. No, I didn't know that the steps were included with the contracts on these other unions. I didn't know that.
You know what, I finally justified in my own mind the steps compared to the private sector, which has apprenticeship programs, where you have apprenticeships making, 50% wages, 60%, and it moves up. The municipalities call it steps. Same kind of thing.
It's a step, it's a promotion, call it what you want.
Well, it's not a promotion, but if it's somebody in sanitation and he's learning the job,
Right.
as he's been on the job
Right.
long enough, it's like an
Yeah.
apprenticeship program.
It's,
Well, if you're a
starting
teacher, and you get your master's, you get a step. If you get your fifth year, you get a step. It's
no, those are
On the
additional
town
boosts.
side, it's based
That's
on
not, those
time,
aren't
how many
steps.
years you've worked. What's not steps for teachers?
Those, what Tim was describing, what you call them steps, but they're not the steps that are in the contracts. The steps that are in contracts are more or less longevity. They're just based on years of service.
Town side definitely.
well,
I don't know how the board
having
works.
a wife who was a teacher and has gotten those same increases. I don't know that that's entirely true, Mike, but I don't want to argue.
So yeah, let's stay off Board of Ed. But we
Yeah.
understand it to be steps and the 2, 5 to 7.5.
Okay, and now I understand why the numbers are larger than you would think.
Michael, would you like to continue?
Sure. Okay, our transfer recycling station, our transportation hauling, we'd like to increase it to 160,000 or the current 90,000. This is where these totes come into play. The totes may eliminate some of the trash and recycling that goes to the recycling center, so we may be able to save some cost with having it placed at the curb instead of going through our transfer recycling station. In our parts division, we have our track and field maintenance, increasing to 80,000 from our current 67,000.
Actually, Mike, could we go back just real quick to the transfer station? I just had a quick question regarding the hauling line item, which is transportation and then parentheses hauling. It seems to have gone up by 78%. I'm just wondering why that went up from 90,000 to 160,000?
We've seen a large increase in people going to our recycling center, and the amount of containers that get hauled out of there has increased drastically. I'm sure it's part of the cause from the pandemic, packages delivered to their homes. So they're utilizing our recycling center for disposal of cardboard, plastics, and so forth.
Yeah, we call that the Piper effect.
So this is not the hauling that is in anticipation of some big storm or something like that, the hauling that was done this last year? This is just standard annual hauling? Okay,
The 30-yard dumpsters at the transfer station is what he's talking about.
got it.
Yeah, there's a lot of action over there.
It's also not the hauling for the residents, as you're saying, when they pick up at the house, right?
I get,
This is just for the
this is just
transfer.
transfer
Transfer
station.
Yeah, this is people bringing it
The other
to
one's
their transfer
sanitation's
station.
on is a different.
There is a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic over there.
It's
Yeah.
a very dangerous intersection, for sure.
You were saying about track and field going up to 80,000?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's another question.
Yeah,
from our current 67,000.
yeah, what's the reasoning for it going up?
19%.
This is the maintenance of the field.
Right, but why is it
The
going up?
contract jumped
Yeah,
almost
the-
20%.
The contract, this is when it goes out to bid, if they put in their bid, we've seen an increase in cost of the bids.
That's the whole point of the bid, is to get it down lower.
I think if you could just get back to Ed, talk to Lynn, because I think it was, you said they were in the last year of the contract and it was going out for bid.
Yes.
So unless they're anticipating a 19% increase,
Yeah, that's way too.
I'd like to just take another look at that number. And you can continue.
All right. That's that.
No, that's it.
Last but not least, the streets and roads, we have no increase on, that should be it.
Just a note on the track and that track expense that you mentioned. According to the encumbrance written in our current expense report, the anticipated expense this year might be 77,000 in the current year. Just a note, that's all.
Tim, did you have any questions for him?
Not this time.
Michael?
No, we did, a toad has come in this room. Are we supposed to inspect it or something?
No, not really.
No.
Okay, Lee.
But it's
The last person to show up.
one,
Has to take it.
Do you have anything for Michael?
1.4 million. No, they do a great job.
Diane?
I just have a question on the full-time secretary. Who, like, do we have someone that does that? And if we do, is it part-time or full-time and we can't pick up the volume? Help me understand what this is for.
We currently have one secretary that's full-time at this time, but we've seen an increase in calls, increase in work, and we'd like to utilize another secretary to take on other tasks in this office. We've seen a lot of invoices come in there, purchase order numbers. There's a little increase in work, which at times it gets overwhelming for the current secretary to handle. So we'd like to put an additional staff in there to assist.
Expanding on that for a second, you're still doing scheduling for the fields?
Currently, we're not doing the scheduling for fields. It's going to Park and Rec.
Okay. Anything else, Diane?
No, that was it.
Nancy? Thank you, Michael.
I have one
Oh, I'm
comment.
sorry, Jim, did I pass you?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Say, Mike, this is the only opportunity I have to say thank you. I live on Juniper Drive in town, and the guy that plows our road does an excellent job. He's there bright and early, middle of the night. I just wanted to let you know that whoever he is, he deserves a pat on the back because he's doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. I will let him know that.
Mike, I'm sorry, I did, one follow-up for me, Mike, it's Tim. So if you had to prioritize your three positions, the admin, you've got the collector and the laborer, how would you prioritize those, please?
I would say.
I'll let you think, we won't put him on the spot, we'll give you a little bit, if you wanna feed it back through Ed, he can send it to us,
That's fine.
if you really
Yeah,
want
you
to
know what, I
digest.
can answer it right now.
Okay.
Pressure's always good. I would prioritize it as, I would look to have a additional secretary, and then an additional sanitation collector, and then streets and roads laborer.
Thank you.
Anything else for Michael? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We don't
Thank
really
you.
make a motion to adjourn because it's a workshop, but we are adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.